This is the Watchman giving another clarion call to the Brotherhood. Now, I wanted to let y'all know I'd previously prepared an entirely different clarion call, but something happened today on January 15th which I simply must cover. There's no two ways about it. You'll remember several years ago, in September of 2011, the Swiss National Bank dropped a huge bomb in the currency arena when it announced that they decided to peg the Swiss franc to the euro. Now, they did this to stop or stymie the stampede out of the euro and into the franc. They didn't want the euro to become too weak, and they didn't want the franc to become too strong against it. You'll also remember this for a different reason back then, if you were a stacker. Because that exceptionally gold bullish news wasn't allowed to be perceived as gold bullish news at all. What do I mean by that? I mean, moments before the S&B announced that they'd be micromanaging a currency peg between their franc and the euro, the central banks stepped into the gold market, whose price was knocking on 2000's door as it is, and crushed gold's price to the center of the earth. It was the most brutal clotheslining of gold that I can ever remember, as it was taken behind the woodshed for roughly $100 in a single trading day. They did this because they didn't want any real safe haven competitors out there like gold and silver making new all-time highs against their fiat currencies and shaking the masses out of their hypnotic currency trance they've been put in. Now, fast forward to today, where the S&B has just made two more announcements hot off the press. First, they've decided to take their already negative interest rate into even deeper negative territory, from negative 0.25% to negative 0.75%. But secondly, and most importantly, due to the ongoing volatility and extreme downward pressures that the euro is currently experiencing, the S&B, for all intents and purposes, will no longer maintain the franc's peg to the euro. Wow. My brothers, this is a showstopper. This has caught nearly all market participants and observers by surprise. And I admit, I didn't see anything like this coming either right now. If the S&B's decision 3 years ago to peg the franc to the euro was a bazooka, then think of today's announcement as a hydrogen bomb dropped on an unsuspecting currency populace. People are now lining up and down the Swiss streets outside forex exchanges, desperate to swap currencies. The franc has jettisoned, it has shot up sharply against both the dollar and the euro. Now, what could be going on here? Well, let's talk it through and think aloud. Remember here, the euro was already making 9-year lows against the dollar before this move was announced, thanks in large part, I think, to the upcoming snap elections in Greece. We talked about this in an earlier article I wrote. Syriza, the anti-euro, anti-bankster, anti-bailout party, is still polling to handily win an outright majority in Greece. This is putting severe downward pressure on the euro currency. Now, the S&B must be expecting something along these lines for this announcement to be made. After all, think about it. If the S&B expected the downward pressure on the euro to be a temporal, transitory thing, why would they announce the cease of this peg? Why would they do it? They would never have moved to unpeg the franc from the euro if they thought these downward pressures were about over. But they did announce it. This tells me several things, okay? It tells me that the S&B thinks the downward pressure on the euro isn't over by a long shot. This also tells me that the S&B would rather risk turmoil in the interest rate swap markets than continue this simple currency peg with this euro anchor around their necks. It tells me that the S&B would rather risk parity with the euro, which has already happened, and perhaps even with the US dollar itself, than to stay in this peg. So what on earth is going on? I mean, this is just screaming that it's a front-running measure. that the S&B is actively preparing for something yet to occur with this announcement. Make no mistake. So that begs the question, what are they preparing for? What's got them so spooked that they'd feel forced to go this nuclear route? Okay, what colossal market event could possibly create enough turbulence on the horizon that they would actually try putting this currency peg genie back into the bottle right now? Well, could it be that they already know how the Greek elections will play out on the 25th? Could it be that, contrary to the reports from Merkel's aides in Berlin and the bureaucrats in Brussels, that losing the Greeks in the euro arrangement would be a far larger deal than anyone is willing to admit? Could it be there's a cracking in the oil derivatives market? How about the interest rate swap or current default swap markets? Was the S&B made aware of imminent plans of, say, further QE from the European Central Bank? Now, I'm not just talking about a little QE here, okay? I'm not talking about some cutesy announcement from Draghi about possible future easing in the future. No, no. For them to make this announcement, it would have to be a full-on helicopter currency drop, because that's the amount of QE it would now take to put off the painful, deep recessionary hole that Europe is now inches away from diving into headfirst. Okay, that's how many euros it would take to stem that for even a short period of time. It would take trillions of euros. Now remember now, just a few short weeks ago, the S&B was aggressively campaigning against their own country's gold repatriation initiative. They were saying crazy things to their pensioners and retirees like, well, if you vote to get your gold back, we might have to institute negative interest rates, which they've just already done twice. Or how about this timeless classic? If you vote to get your gold back, we may have to actually abandon our currency pegged to the euro, which would lead to a deflationary disaster for you and the francs you've saved. Okay, they threatened all of that, friends. And yet, what did they do? They just did every single one of those very things. Most curious. All the biggest reasons for which they listed that they fought tooth and nail against this gold repatriation for, they've already enacted in less than 2 months. Hear me well here, brothers. I don't know all the reasons the S&B decided to do this, but whatever the reasons are that they felt forced to abandon this 3-year-long peg to the euro, those reasons can't be good, can they? Less than 24 hours after the decision's been made, it's already causing some very big players very serious losses. Now, brothers, if you were ever the kind of person who wanted someone out there, anyone out there, to ring an alarm bell in front of your face that something truly horrific was about to happen, that was it. Okay? You just got it. The Swiss franc peg to the euro was a failure. It's true. But abandoning this failure right here and now at such a time as this is shouting from the rooftops to you that a chain of even larger, more monstrous failures is likely just beginning. This is the Watchman giving another clarion call to the Brotherhood. Stay vigilant and bring the fight to them.